Hello and welcome to episode number 18 of the Curling Legends podcast. My name's Kevin Palmer, and each week through the curling season, I share a conversation with a player or storyteller from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s. We cover curling from the invention of the slide through to the adoption of the free guard zone. Don Barcome is on the show today. Again, I want to thank you for listening, and if you are listening to us on the computer, where you can find us at curlinglegends.ca, or our Facebook page, facebook.com/curlinglegends. Thank you for that. But just to remind you, you can also download plenty of applications on your smartphone that will play podcasts and also allow you to subscribe to the show. Those include iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, and Downcast, and many others. And if you do have a friend or family member that struggles with technology, please help them download an app to their phone and listen to the show. Thanks again to Jerry Gertz and Curling Zone for supporting the podcast, as well as Steve Lobel, who provided the artwork, and Mark Rogman, who provided the music. Don Barcome was born in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but when he was very young, the family moved to Grand Forks, North Dakota, where they were then exposed to the game of curling. And the entire family took to it. In fact, his father, Don Sr., eventually ended up becoming the president of USA Curling, and then later the president of the World Curling Federation. But back then, a young Don Jr. took to the game quickly and seemed to have an affinity at it. In fact, by the age of 11, he was playing on men's teams in the local club leagues and then organizing bonspiels when he was a teenager, and eventually ended up skipping his junior rink in the Hibbing Bonspiel when he was 13 years old. In fact, he faced off against Orest Meleschuk and his 1972 World Championship team in the fourth event final. Don modeled his slide after Barry Fry. His mother had drove 2.5 hours up to Winnipeg so that he could watch Barry play in the consoles. By 1976, with brother Earl, along with Dale Mueller and Dale's brother Gary, they won the U.S. Nationals and traveled to Scotland, where they ultimately faced the Paul Gowsell rink. In 1977, Don and the same team returned to win the Nationals, and the Worlds that year were in Quebec City. And though they lost in their semifinal, Don was awarded the Most Sportsmanlike Player Award, despite flipping the fans. And then in 1979, with Earl again at lead, but now with Randy Darling at third and Bobby Stalker at second, they won the World Championship in Moose Jaw. And right after winning that World Championship on television, brother Earl, when they asked him what he was going to do next, he didn't say he was going to Disneyland, but that they were going to go to Hibbing. So we talk quite a bit about Hibbing and the evolution of that spiel and what it means to Don. We talk about his experience as the fifth man at the 2002 Olympics, which were played in Salt Lake City and followed the events of 9/11 by a few months. Don mentions how in 2004, just as he was helping to bring the national championship to Grand Forks, he was diagnosed with cancer. And we don't go into it, but just as some more background on that, he had cancer of the lower tongue, had 25 to 30 surgeries, including radiation, and ultimately the doctors put a part of his leg bone into his jaw, and he's been quoted as saying, "If I run off at the mouth, which I've been known to do, it's not my fault. I've got my leg bone over there." We then talk about bringing the World Championships to Grand Forks in 2008, as well as his other involvements in curling and his current thoughts on the game as a whole, as well as USA Curling. We talk a bit about the decline in the 80s, and then now we've seen some recent growth, so we touch on that. I really enjoyed our conversation. Apologize for a bit of the static. Did the best I could to try to clean up our phone conversation, but please stay with it. It's a fascinating conversation with the first of our international guests on the Curling Legends podcast. Here is my conversation with Don Barcome. All right. So, yeah, you're our first non-Canadian.
Uh-oh. Well, I am part Canadian, you know. I mean, I spent about a third of my life.
But not born and raised. Where were you? Where'd you start out?
I was born in Green Bay and grew up in...
Okay.
But I figured about 30-some years at 10 to 15 weeks a year in Canada. Curling counts for something.
Did you start curling in Green Bay, or at what age were you when you moved to Dakota?
I moved to Grand Forks when I was 7 and started curling, actually threw my first rocks before my 8th birthday.
Okay. And was it something that you learned from your parents, or what got you into the sport in the first place?
A former national champion, Curlin Brapton, Art Hallerson's wife, got my mom started, and she took us out for kids curling, even though we were pretty much too young, but that's how she rolled, and we started curling. So that would have been the winter of '66.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started throwing rocks, and we just stayed involved. And I think I ran my first Bonspiel, junior spiel, when I was in 7th grade.
Oh, you ran a bond? You mean you organized and ran a Bonspiel?
Yeah.
Okay, in 7th grade. Okay, when you probably would have been about 12 then, probably, or so.
11, I think. Yeah. And I think for my 14th birthday, I asked to go to Hibbing, take my junior team to Hibbing for the last chance.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother was 11, and I was 13 at the time, and we went to Hibbing curling a couple of weeks before my 14th birthday, and we lost the fourth event finals to Orest Meleschuk, Johnny Usakis, Danny Hirich. So that was kind of my real introduction into playing some pretty cool guys.
And we'll get into Hibbing, and I do want to talk about it because that event's close to my heart. So you're 14 years old at that point in time. How close was the game? Do you recall?
Excuse me?
How close was that game against Orest? What was the final score?
Oh, God. The only thing I really remember is going out there and shaking hands. Somehow, 2 Canadians got in an accident in a blizzard near International Falls that were in 2 different teams. And they didn't make it. And we caught the bye our first game, and then we caught 2 byes out of that. That was 2 of our 5 wins. I remember that. And then we were shaking hands with the guys, and they wanted to play winner take all. And everybody laughed because I said, "Oh no, Mr. Meleschuk, we can't do that." So, and years later, I actually curled with Orest and Danny and Johnny and different spiels. I'm probably one of the only guys who curled with everybody on the Meleschuk World Championship team and the Labonte team that they beat over the years. So it was just, I had a blessed life. I got to go with Garnet Campbell in the spiel. He called my mom up when I was a kid, and I drove up to Avonlea, Saskatchewan.
How old were you at that point?
Hell, I was
just in high school. Okay.
Another weekend, I go with Bruce Roberts in the spiel in Evelyn. Mom wouldn't let me drive over to Evelyn, so I ended up flying to Minneapolis and up to Hibbing. I go with Bud Somerville. I go with the Johnny Austin and Labonte guys out of Grafton and Gillis Hammers and those guys, and Dale Jalzell, another U.S. champ.
As a pretty young guy, you were just known as a shooter and somebody that would come out and play? Yeah.
Yeah. Arnold Ashton called me up one afternoon when I was about 23, I suppose, and within a half hour I was on the road up to Winnipeg, flying to Thunder Bay with him to curl in, what the hell, McDonald's maybe it was back then.
Yeah, that spiel. Okay, so you were a short notice guy then. You were definitely one of those ones that word got around, hey, we could just call Don and he'll make it.
Yeah, I was on the road a lot with my, but I was in a situation where I was able just to go. Mm-hmm. And I love calling different people and learning the game. And I was having a lot of great men.
So going back a little bit to that, did you play other sports as a kid, or was it literally from the time you were 8, curling just consumed you? Okay, no, so you did other things, yeah.
I played basketball, football, and later golf in college. But in basketball, I had a couple of buddies that were really good, both made All-State in North Dakota in high school. And in 9th grade, I just decided I wanted to curl full-time in the winter, so that's what I did.
In the 9th grade, yeah.
Yeah,
So take us back to sort of what curling in the United States then is like, in particular in North Dakota or in that area. And I don't know, I like to imagine that it's a close-knit community of people between Wisconsin and Minnesota and North Dakota, but maybe it's not. Maybe you can share the kind of what it was like, particularly that back then when you were a kid.
Growing up, there were 22 clubs in North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
We're back in the 60s and 70s. And pretty much every weekend between northwestern Minnesota, southern Manitoba, and North Dakota, we could go curl within 60 to 100 miles. In fact, we did the odd trip to Kenora, or Thunder Bay, or Regina, or southern, Brandon, or something like that. But pretty much easy to go curl. We didn't have driver's license started, so you had to beg a ride and all that. But it was pretty amazing. You never knew when Bud Somerville would show up. Scotty Baird, upsets out of the midweek. John Larson was a really nice girl out of Thief River Falls. Grafton had a ton of talent. Park River, Edmore. And then there were the odd, very, not the cash dealers out of southern Manitoba, but the next tier that came down.
Mm-hmm.
They came down to party, and you had to play a hell of a team, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And Barry Fry was one of my first real heroes. I used to watch at the library to read 3-4 day old free press articles on curling and cash steward. So that's no internet, no instant gratification communication.
So sorry, you said Barry Fry?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one. Okay, so he was one of your early idols. What in particular? Why Barry? What was it?
I loved his slide.
Mm-hmm.
I was about 11 years old, 12 years old, and mom had taken us up to watch a console, and I decided that's how I was going to slide, and that's what I did. And then my parents more and more got involved on the social side. So they were up in Winnipeg and got to know the Two Goods and various people like that. Bob Hicken was one of my dad's best friends and was on the board with my dad when my dad was president of the World Federation. So, yeah, it's just been a family deal forever.
So how did your dad get introduced to the game? The same way, like it was in that move to North Dakota when that happened? Same?
He's a Green Bay boy, but never really knew about curling until he was in Grand Forks.
Mm-hmm.
They had the 59 Nationals in Grand Forks, and he was a co-chair. Bud Somerville won that, and he was the host family for the Somerville rink. And that pushed us along, and then going to the World Juniors in 76 and 77, and then 79, he got to know more and more European and Canadian people on the executive level. Meanwhile, he was president of the U.S. Federation Curling Association in, I want to say, like 1981 or so. Maybe I might have been before that. But once he got going on a committee, it was my dad's MO to become president. I mean, he pretty much was president of everything he did.
Now, so going back to that slide, I guess at that time when you're 8, 9, 10 years old, what is taught? Like, what was there available in terms of coaching?
Well, they were pretty much Ken Watson, flat foot, release the rock kind of early in the house. And once we used to go practice and maybe not hardly throw a rock. All we did was jump off the backboard, hit the hack, and slide as far as we could. I mean, that was our big game. Yeah, it was like, and the surfaces we had for sliders back then, literally Hilux yards or go to the Grand Forks glass and paint store and look for tile that would work. I started a curling supply business, Barcome Curling Supplies, back after my sophomore year in high school. And I was one of Lasse's first customers. He was just selling red brick sliders and tournament handwear gloves, basically. And that's how I met Arnie way back. And one of his first brick sliders was a slider I wore when we won the World Juniors. And then I went to one of his first, I think I had the second or third prototype steel slider. But yeah, I'm old. I mean, we go back. I mean, I used to put waxing the wood grain of my horn broom to slide on. Everything we're trying to be frictionless.
You used to wax? Okay, this is interesting. So you actually used to wax part of your broom? Okay.
Yeah, just to see if that made a difference. But usually just getting it really smoothed down was a bit. So when I first started sliding it, we had to release the rock. Not only release the rock to the hard line, your body had to stop. So here's me with this hard-ass slide, releasing the rock and coming stop. Mm-hmm. And the old guys at the curling club would stand right behind and watching for you to see your body didn't stop. So it was fun.
And they'd sit and watch you, and they would actually watch you. So what was the club environment like then in Grand Forks at that time in the 60s?
I started making ice, helping being the rugrat running for burgers or holding hoses probably in 4th grade. And I think I was in about 6th or 7th when one of the top skips, Canadian Kenny Atchison, he actually worked for my dad at the hospital. Kenny asked him to throw third for him in men's league. And I went down on men's night. And kids were made to be seen and not heard and not to be showing up on men's night. Mm-hmm. And the president told me I was not welcome. So I walked home. My mom said, I told you that was going to happen. Here's your chore list. She gave me a check for $400 made out to the curling club to buy my share of stock. Mm-hmm. And with my share of stock, they couldn't say nothing.
And how old were you at that point?
Oh, I must have been 10 or 11.
10 or 11, okay. So you were the only 10 or 11-year-old out that had a share in the curling club, I assume.
Oh, yeah. It was a loophole. Mom already handed it up.
Yeah, so they couldn't say it because you were a contributor. They couldn't say anything. So you were, wow. So yeah. Were you a prodigy then at that point? Like, it sounds like you really took to the game and you clearly had some skills.
Well, It wasn't natural skills. I practiced.
Mm-hmm.
I love practicing. I practiced it kept me out. I got in a water trouble growing up, but curling kept me out of water trouble. It really did. I was just an ADD kid. I mean, I was busy. Curling was a way to stay busy without getting in trouble. So I used to throw 100 watts every day minimum and sub in 2-3 games a night in the league. And then go home.
Is there anybody else at that time that you saw doing similar from kind of your neck of the woods?
Not at that time.
Yeah.
Not really. My brother was very much a natural. My brother Earl was a very natural curler, and he didn't need to practice, and he had other things going on. There was really good junior curlers up in Grafton, Kim Austin in his rink, and then Scotty Dalzell. Scott and Todd Dalzell. Scotty left us about 10 years ago with a heart attack. He was junior champ in 1980, lost in the semis to McQuiston. And his dad's one of the only, he might be the only guy he curled for Gordy Sparks back in, Bernie Sparks, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie Sparks in the Briar, I think it was out in Vancouver, way back in 50-something, 58, 59, back there. And then he moved to North Dakota and won the U.S. Nationals in, I think, 71. So his two sons were very much, but they're probably a good 8 years younger than me.
Okay.
So they kind of follow along in my footsteps.
Outside of the curling environment, were people very aware or familiar with the sport? Like, give us kind of a sense of that North Dakota world. Like, I know Grand Forks and Fargo area. I mean, they're not big cities, but I'd imagine you probably met lots of people that didn't really understand the game as you were growing up.
Correct. But in the late 60s and 70s, there were 22 clubs in North Dakota. In a population of about 450,000, it is pretty much did everybody know about it? No, but there was 1,400 curlers in North Dakota at that time, maybe even more. So basically, I think at the same time, Winnipeg had the same number of rinks.
Yeah, and probably a slightly larger city, Winnipeg.
Same population.
Yeah, same population. Yeah, so it's probably a case of a little bit of people that didn't know the game, at least were aware of it, or knew someone who knew someone that did it, right?
Yeah, and there was curling at the University of North Dakota. There's curling class at North Dakota State and Fargo. Many of the small town high schools had curling as part of their gym classes, and that all went away in the 80s as budget cuts and Title IX getting women involved, and it's kind of, which is too bad because women being involved with curling would have been very easy, as it turned out later. But it's curling stagnated as plants got older. And then there was a migration from farm communities to bigger towns, and we've seen that all across Dakota. Small towns out here have died, so a lot of the curling clubs went that way. Grand Forks is opening up a new 4-sheeter this week. Fargo built a new 6-sheeter a couple of years ago. Bismarck, Williston's got a vibrant club. Minot's doing good. Grafton's still doing good. So, I mean, it's interesting. It's changed a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned about the women's game. So were there many women players back when you were starting out? Or
not really. It was mostly mixed curling.
Mm-hmm. So
that mix was very social. In Grand Forks, for instance, they had Tuesday night mix. There was 2 draws. You went down and ate dinner during the first draw or the second draw. More country club. Much more club.
Yeah, so you had to go and find events to be competitive. So as you were saying, you were the young kid that was willing to play with anybody, anywhere, just to get the experience and get into the competition. Do you remember what's the first prize? Do you remember the first prize you ever won?
I think we came in, I was about 11, and we lost the second event, I think, in the Grand Forks men's. That might have been the first little pewter cup I got. Something like that. During the flood 97 Grand Forks, I found a couple boxes of trophies there was a few.
So as you're building a team then, so did you always figure you were going to skip? Was that part of your, as a junior, as that team was forming, is that always your position, or what were you playing at the time?
I guess that's more my personality. Mm-hmm. I migrated to skipping early on and only curled third for a few people in my life, basically. I don't know how many games I curled or anything like that, but it's from the get-go I skipped.
So who was that first junior team then that you won the nationals with?
My brother at lead, and then Dale and Gary Mueller, Gary was a year older than me and Dale 2. They actually were from Edmore. They moved to Grand Forks, and We curled together for 4 years, I suppose, 3 years, 4 years. And we got into it when we started the junior playdowns in 75. We didn't make it to nationals. And then we won the state in 76 and went to nationals in Chicago. And all I remember is Johnny Sega from Hibbing with the trophy over his head running down the hallway before it starts. My brother said, I don't care what we do, we're beating those guys.
This is before the
event. They were defending champ. Yeah.
Okay.
He just said, I don't care how we're... And we had no idea how we'd stack up. We really never curled North Dakota, northwest Minnesota up to Hibbing and went up to Canada. We never really played juniors. It was all men.
Were there even junior events that you could play in up?
Yeah.
Was there? Okay, so there were some opportunities.
One big one, Teddy Spencer in Winnipeg started a junior field out of the old the Highlander. And Winnipeg had a whole bunch of, I don't know, like 48 sheets or something, or 32 sheets. He started a junior field back in the late 70s up there that we'd go to every year, but that was about it. And we're in Chicago, and Betty Duguid was running the club, and we went ahead and went unbeaten, and I was our first international.
What was involved at that point, even just to get out of the state? So, what was the structure like? How did it work?
There was, back then in North Dakota, there was a club play down and then a state play down. In 76, there was another rink, young rink, that played down against us. And then 16 teams at state in a double knockout. And we went unbeaten in those. And then 77, Kim Austin was going to college, and he brought his junior team out of Grand Forks. And they beat us 2-1, 2 games to 1. So we were done. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, they only filled 15 teams at state. The guy running the state said, hey, we want 16 teams who want to come curl. And we said, yeah. So we went up to Cavalier, and we were playing Kim in the semis of the A side. And my brother and I just talked about it last week over Christmas. We were down 9-2. My brother chewed our asses out, and we went on to win the game 11-10, and stayed unbeaten.
And that was in 77?
Yeah.
Okay, so in 76, you win the Nationals. In 77, you don't get out of you don't even qualify for state, but then you get invited because they're short teams. You're down 9-2. You win that game.
Yep.
And you go on to win the Nationals again and make it to the Worlds. So how about in 76? Was there some other narrow escapes in that Chicago Nationals that you had to get through?
Steve Penincello had a guy to the 4-foot that beat us at the Minnesota rink. If I remember right, we beat him in an extra. Jock Goodland from Wisconsin, same kind of deal. I think we came home tied up, threw up 7 guards, and I don't know how we got that many rocks to play, but they were, and I threw something out in the weeds, and it came in, and he couldn't beat it. So they had 2 tight games that year. And 77 kind of had a tight game against Jock Goodland again. He had a chance to beat us. But in 3 years of juniors, my teams went, we had 1 loss. Lost 1 game in 79 in the next round.
In the Nationals?
Yeah, state and nationals.
State and Nationals. So in 76, when you win the Nationals, so what does USA curling look like at that time? So in terms of the organization?
It was brutal. If it wasn't for my parents, we would have been in trouble. My mom and dad got a hold of U.S. Senator Young to make sure we got our passports in time. Those were hand-delivered from Washington back to Grand Forks for us because of the people they knew. The USGA gave us $1,000 to get team uniforms and an airline ticket. The guy in 76 that ran the juniors, guy named Had Milliken, I think he's passed now. He signed out as our coach. We had no idea. So he got a free trip over to Scotland. And his one coaching moment came when we showed him how to cut our horn booms down, cut the handles down. That was his big contribution.
Yeah.
I think my mom and dad chipped in quite a bit to buy her off-ice uniforms and supplement the $1,000.
It sounds like that wasn't enough really to cover the cost of the trip.
Well, they gave us an airline ticket and $1,000 whole, $250 a guy. So, but we tried to get on-ice, off-ice uniform for $250 even then. There's no way. But we had a good trip over there, and we lost, I think it was Lamsville we lost to in our last round robin game, extra end measurement, and we came in, I think we tied for 5th, and they kept us out of the playoffs.
And that I'm assuming, was that the first time overseas for the 4 of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me. I think my brother had been to Sweden, but I hadn't been over. And it was fun. Chuck Hay was the head umpire, which was a relationship that never slowed down after that. And the whole thing, it was an amazing trip. I mean, kids from North Dakota, I was a senior in high school, and next thing you know, you're flying over to Scotland. It was awesome.
Now, you guys are using corn brooms, right?
Yep.
So was this the first time you'd played against teams that used push broom?
Well, my dad actually had used the push broom forever. He never really used the corn. I don't even remember him using corn.
Yeah.
But, seeing dolls were going at it with those push brooms, and Kelly from Scotland, Bob Kelly, he was a skip the Scottish rink. Those guys, they had the middle push brooms, we called them. And everything, their bodies, the brush, everything went at the same speed. So that was kind of weird. But then they thought our corn brooms were really weird. And I know when we were getting ready to leave, Norwegians and Swedes, John Olsen was the defending champ from 75 and beat him 9-0 in the round robin, which was fun. But those guys we had probably 20 brooms with us, and we didn't leave with one. Those guys wanted them. So that was fun.
Oh, really? Yeah, you traded all the brooms and with the guys. And
we all came home with a push broom and a bit of whiskey. I think we got a push broom and a couple bottles for our corn.
So was that the first time you'd met Gowsell's rink?
No, we actually knew each other from the junior spiels in Winnipeg. That's the Highliner. That's when we actually met. And those guys they won a couple cars. They flew. I think they went skiing in Switzerland before they showed up in Scotland. And then they didn't go home from Scotland. Dolls went to Greece to lay on the beach or something. I mean, they were pretty large in our minds. We're like, no, yeah, wow. And they're great guys. I mean, each of them, Kelly's passing all, but, Glenn Jackson, Houston, and Paul, we crossed paths and have great memories together.
So when they were there, you managed to do some socializing at that first Worlds. There was some, really bonding connection amongst the teams, it sounds like, with a bunch of
there was cold beer. The coldest beer in Avonmore was at the ice. They kept the kegs down by the ice. So that was, there was a bit of social.
Having just come close to the playoffs but not making it, was your immediately thought the following year is, you probably felt, though, like you were close. This is something, hey, we're pretty good. Like, you tested your mettle in 76, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
It showed we really, there wasn't all this briefing. There wasn't coaches. You didn't go to clinics. You didn't have, psychology. You pulled up your pants and said, hey, we got to work harder. And we did. We came back from that and filled the steals and went to Hibbing. I think we lost in the quarterfinals that year in Hibbing, which was pretty cool to make it that far. Cool Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Let's touch on Hibbing now, because I've had the opportunity to play in Hibbing twice back from my days in Winnipeg, and for a lot of teams in Winnipeg, it was a great spiel that guys would go down to at the end of the year, let their hair down a little bit, enjoy themselves, have a good time. It's a great event.
Okay, right? You have to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Let their hair down a lot.
Well, I'm just trying to phrase it in a family-friendly way.
I remember my parents we made the finals the first, what year was that? 77, I think we made the finals. Played Rick from Etobicoke in Kenora, Ontario. And my parents were going to fly over in a private plane to watch us. And I said, no, Timmy, we dressed like bums. We're not dressed like, good young curlers. We're drinking beer and having a blast. It's Hibbing, and that never changed. Parents never came over to watch us curl in Hibbing, which is too bad, but you curl all year long, and we did. And we were out there dressed as a team, played as a team. We had fun in curling, but Hibbing was our time from the first time we ever went. And we really, it was your season ending party, and couldn't imagine greater people. I don't know if you remember Bob Lemecka, full-time curler from Winnipeg. I actually caddied for him in a tournament when I was about fourth grade in Grand Forks. And so I knew a few people the first time I went there, but, you go back and back and back and back. You really do get to know Dale Duguid and I, that's where we met. He was home with a couple of friends of his dad's, and Dave Iverson, who I still keep in contact with, Johnny Allardyce. Some really cool people from Winnipeg always came down. And I was, 79, we won the World Juniors, and we showed up in Hibbing when they put the mic in my brother's face, so what are you going to do now after this? And Earl said, I'm going to Hibbing. He did. It's right in the video. It's awesome. We got to Hibbing. They paid for our entry fee, paid for a hotel room. The people in Hibbing watching that TV show back then were shocked. long before I'm going to Disneyland, my brother nailed it.
That he's going to Hibbing. And that, so you played in it the first time you said 14 years old, first time you went to Hibbing, correct?
13. Well, a couple weeks before my 14th birthday.
Before your 14th. Okay, and then
average age in the team would have been about 14 or 13.
Now, were there other junior teams at that time playing in Hibbing, or was that an anomaly, you guys? Okay.
There were juniors coming with their family or friends, but for a young guy to come in, it actually changed the rule a few years later, but I played there 22 straight years and had a blast. Every time was another adventure.
So did they always have those early morning starters? Because when I remember, you could either have a Caesar or a screwdriver before the first draw, so that's something that was traditional going way back.
Well, when we're signing up and they give every team a bottle of Windsor or Canadian Mist or something. That first couple of years, they looked at us and, Tommy Locken, I think, grabbed the bottle the first time, and somebody grabbed it the other time.
Yeah.
We had more people watching over us, so it really didn't matter.
Yeah, they were looking out for you.
It was an experience. But that's part of curling, is getting to know people. And because of those contacts, I did a lot of more curling. We were always invited to fields everywhere. Yeah,
so a couple notes about Hibbing that's interesting to talk about. One, of course, so Kevin McHale from Hibbing, Minnesota.
Yeah.
In fact, my one of the guys that I curled with, he wasn't playing with me. I played with him in juniors, but he was playing on another team in Hibbing that year. We were down there, and he hooked up with Kevin McHale's one of his babysitters. And then, of course, Bob Dylan, or at the time, Bob Zimmerman, born in Hibbing. So one time we were there, and we mentioned that in the change room, and someone said, "Oh, you want to go see the house?" And so, of course, they invited us over to the house and got to see sit in the living room where Bob Dylan in the house Bob Dylan was born. So that was really interesting. Another time, my team had to head down. I had a job interview, so I missed the first game, and I wanted to get down to Hibbing. And what was interesting is I thought, okay, well, they're already down there with the car. I'll just take a bus down. And interestingly enough, Greyhound was started in Hibbing, Minnesota, but you cannot get a Greyhound bus from Winnipeg to Hibbing. Despite the fact that it was built there. Yeah. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a fun, the years I was there watching the boom and then the bus, the mining boom, people were making big money working the mines.
Were they at the time? Yeah.
Everything was just cruising, and then it went into a depression area and tough times, and came back with different industries. And for me, I dated a girl, from Hibbing, a couple of years older than me, and her, she had siblings that went to school with Dylan and went to school with McHale. McHale, I saw him and Larry Bird walking down the street one day during summertime. McHale bought a lake resort area just so those guys would have a private place to hang out and fish. Another year we were there, they dedicated, had an addition on the high school, and Kevin bought the weight room and set it all up for the high school, which was really cool. It's good, hard-ass working community, and just great memories there.
It sounds like it grew to be a second home for you, or certainly maybe not a resort location, but definitely a part of you anyway.
Resort. Yeah. I was going to school, and after early 80s, I went to school in Flagstaff, flew home to go to Hibbing each year. And in 83, I held the broom, and my brother threw last rocks, or time he's ever thrown last rocks with me on the ice. And we beat Paul was on the team, Jacob, another guy. We beat a local rink in the final. That was the second time we won. So, I was out there throwing with my ASU shorts and tan legs. Didn't miss a beat. We had fun.
So 83 was was that the first year you won Hibbing?
We won it in 79 after we won the World Juniors. We curled, in 79, we curled, I don't know how much better than we did in Moose Jaw, but we did curl better. It was probably as good a weekend on the ice as I've ever had. It was just amazing shot making, all four guys on the same page, partied, very few hours of sleep, and a lot of W's.
What was the difference in 79? Was it just all the experience you'd gathered? Was it just, like you say, you just seemed to play well, everything came together? What happened?
The decade of high-level curling turned us into the experienced guys. We were fine. Three of us had beards. If you look at a picture from 79, the only baby face is my brother. And, we wouldn't know about it, but when you're there for 3 times in 4 years, the other countries knew who we were, and that never hurt. I mean, and for us, we didn't care who was there. We knew what we could do, and we lost 2 games in extra end without the hammer. I mean, that's a pretty solid run.
Based on what you said, you didn't slow down your socializing aspect of the sport at all either. You tried to stay consistent with the way what you enjoyed. Part of what you enjoyed about the game was the ability to get, meet the other teams, have a good time.
Oh, 77, I actually won the most sportsmanlike player award. Mm-hmm. But the reason I won it might be different. We were playing Bill Jenkins at Laval. Outside sheet, there's only seating on the end and the far side from us. First end, I think I gassed one, and Jenkins stole one, and the crowd went crazy. Second end, I had a pair of pants double. I got one and left when the crowd just roared their approval, and I flipped off 5,000-6,000 Canadians. They're out in the ice and turned them all and flipped them off. We won the game 7-8-3, I think. But then I got voted most sportsmanlike, so go figure.
So, sorry, you flipped off the crowd and you still got most sportsmanlike.
Yep.
Yeah, but see, that's because the crowd doesn't vote on that, I'm assuming, right? So,
yeah, exactly. It was the players. But I remember, I can still hear my brother seeing me staring at the crowd, raising my right hand, and him saying, Donnie, no! And oh my God.
So how big was the crowd?
Oh, 7,000.
So it's a good number. I mean, that's almost like, was it a Ryder Cup experience, did you think? Then is almost like, if you think about the Europeans being in Hazeltine last year?
It's, maybe like on a scale, 10% scale, 1% scale, but the crowd in the fall was great. Moose Jaw, they packed too. Scotland, there was 30-40 people a draw. I mean, they were kind of it's up in Aviemore, away from everything, but hospitality at all the events was amazing. It really was.
At that point, so 79, was that your last eligibility year? I assume at this point?
Yep.
Okay.
I was done. And didn't make a U.S.
Yeah.
I didn't make the U.S. Nationals until I was living in Colorado in '89 and finally made it. And we lost the semis. And since '89, I don't know if I played in 15, 16, 17 U.S. Nationals. Only won it once, co-third for Tim Somerville in '99. And we lost the semis to Warwick Smith over in St. John's, '99.
So what were you doing in the early 80s? Were you still committed to curling, or was there a bit of did you take the foot off the gas a little bit?
North Dakota was very competitive. Lost 2 or 3 finals in the men's. We just didn't make it. I mean, didn't put it together at the right time. Had some very good teams. My brother and I had Scott and Todd Dalzell for 4 years. We were solid. We didn't win. We, like I said, lost a couple finals. Moved on. Had a team with Mark Lupsick and Tim Johnson and my brother out of the Bemidji boys. I think we were 78-5 when we went to regional competition and won 2 or 3 cash deals, smaller cash deals in Canada, and actually won the Nipplewin cash day. I was covered Davey Bowman and Brent Bramer. That was a blast. First American to get the name on the Nipplewin.
On the Nipplewin Trophy. Okay, so Brent Bramer's story. So my first skip was Brent Bramer playing Saturday juniors. I played lead for Brent. So I grew up. He was just a couple. Brent's a few years older than me. So it wasn't for trying. It sounds like in the 80s you were still practicing. You were still trying to make curling a part of your life.
Sure. Yeah, I still curled my 20, 30 weekends a year and just didn't put the wings on and played on. Yeah, that happens. But yeah, Brent is a very good friend of mine. I was a pallbearer for his mom and sister and his dad. And he got up at his sister's funeral and said, there was a time I wasn't very good at this. Not very long.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing guy. I actually used to go, a couple of years I drove up on Tuesdays to curl with Brent in Super League from Grand Forks up to Winnipeg.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, back in, I was about 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, it's a small world.
I always wanted to curl with the Super League. Yeah, wow, that's curling.
Yeah, for sure. At some point in the 80s then, did you start to get frustrated and think this should be easier, or did you feel like it's maybe not going to come my way at some point, or what was your...
No, just keep trying. And to me, curling is never measured by, success of wins and losses. I mean, no matter what, you won the world. That was huge. I never said, I deserve this. I deserve to be there I still love throwing my rocks in practice. Making ice, and I made ice in Grand Forks and made ice when I lived in Denver. I mean, had to be at the arena by 3 a.m. because it was going to be 80-something, 90 by noon. You got to work from 3 until 8 in the morning. Be out of there.
So why'd you end up in Denver? What took you there?
Oh, I had a job. I lived there plus 7.
So what was the curling community like in Denver?
Mostly Canadian with a few Midwesterners. Bunch of Great West Lakes had moved down there. Maybe you know one of the great Bruce Masters from Winnipeg. Bruce curled took for me, and we had some great runs at nationals, and just didn't quite make it. Make the playoffs and one and done kind of deal, but we did try.
In Denver at that point, how many clubs? Is it just the one club in Denver, or is there more?
At that time, there was a club on skating ice at the Broadmoor. And then the club, it was actually a freestanding club we had near the airport, near Stapleton in Denver, 4-seater. So we had a good couple hundred members, and nice club. And they've got a new club now at Highlands Ranch. And I just heard from another friend down there, Jerry Van Brunt, over the holidays that there's a good chance that Colorado Springs will be building a club in the near future. So that's exciting.
Well, okay, so let's get back. So in the 90s now. So in '89. Okay, so '89 you get back to nationals. That's your first trip to men's nationals, correct?
Yep.
In '89. Yeah. Okay. So how does the next decade kind of evolve?
It was changing in that the United States Olympic Committee and the Olympics were part of the deal. We got close in the Olympic trials, just didn't quite make it.
You mean after '88, or moving into at what point did it? Okay, so at some point now
we actually lost. We lost the semis in '87 to go to the '88 Olympics, and that put us on the map basically for not the funding was never a significant amount of major change, but it brought in the era of having a sports psychologist, having access to the sports psychologist. No, not drug tests. I mean, everybody kind of knew you could get a phone call and they expect you to do a drug test, which was different.
So that was even as a demonstration sport that triggered a different focus on the game at that point and then in the early 90s.
But then we had Albertville in '92. So, it all just evolved. And I was a director. I got involved in Grand Forks. I was on the board there when I was 16. I was a director for athletes. I helped get the AA Athletic Association going for curling. I was a draw master for a few years in the 90s for the USCA. The 90s, you just saw it evolve into more regional play. Teams didn't all come from the same club anymore. There was a second chance if you didn't qualify from your state. There was a second shot, which was different. In fact, in '99, Tim and our team lost in Wisconsin, ended up in Grafton, and went unbeaten to take a spot out of Grafton to go to the Nationals in Duluth. So, before that, it was the news is done. Nowadays, it's a little different. And now it's even more different since I retired.
So you were in Albertville in '92?
No, we didn't make. No, that was Tim Somerville, really.
Well, that's right. You went in 2002, right?
Right.
So what was the process at that point in '02 then? So what did it evolve to in terms of the competition to qualify?
It was out in Oregon, the site for the Olympics. I was the fifth man for Tim, and had Tim and Mike Schneeberger, Miles Gordon, and Miles Brundage, and Johnny Gordon. So they had 18 events planned out, and it was a double round robin. So it was a good long week of curling. It was a different experience. And then came even more drug tests, and 9/11 had happened, and that was pretty wild. Before I went there, I was chosen to be in a commercial with Office Depot that went national during the Super Bowl and on into the Olympics. So it was pretty wild.
So by the late 90s, at that point, you're getting up there a little bit. How much time are you able to even to devote to curling, and how competitive did you feel you were?
I was playing 20-some weekends a year.
No, you're still okay. That's never stopped. Yeah.
Yep. No, I just didn't. That's just who I was. And while I was they were building the Ralph Engelstad Arena, I got the idea of bringing the Orioles to Grand Forks, because that was a dream of mine to bring curling to my hometown. I started the Forks Curling Classic to get the community going. So we ran 3 years in a row. We ran the Forks Classics, and I think we were the third biggest payout all 3 years on the whole tour. That was really fun. And I got involved with bidding for the U.S. Nationals, which we had in 2004. I got a little sidetracked with cancer in 2004, about a week before the Nationals. He told me I had a 10% chance to live 6 months. So that and then we went and lost the second chance to get to the Nationals. We lost the playoff game to Richie Verhonen. which sucked, but it happens. Probably saved my life because I would have put off the doctor. And 2005, I was pretty much slowing down. I was still curling a lot, but I think my last real competitive year was 2008. Last time I played now. And we went over to Scotland in 05 and bid for the Worlds, for the Orest Worlds. And I was the chairman, and I set up a blueprint for a 7-year plan, and we did it, which is pretty amazing accomplishment in my mind. But it's something I dreamed about, and we sold, I think, over 50,000 tickets, and they figured about a $20 million impact into the Grand Forks community. And the fun thing is, it paid for a new ice plant for the club they're building right now. So that was nice and something to leave behind in my family's name.
And so, are you still involved at all with curling on the building side today, or are you completely stepped aside?
They just like you, people bring me out and dust me off and ask me questions. Sometimes they give me a first rock to throw. I get a phone call during the Olympics or something like that. And I had a great run. I mean, it was 30-some years of traveling and meeting people and enjoying a lot of success on the ice. I mean, no other way to look at it. I'm very grateful for it all.
So you don't play in Hibbing anymore?
No, we went there, and I think I went there in about 2000, late 7, 8 years ago, I suppose. I went there and we lost. We actually lost the finals to a guy from Winnipeg, and I can't remember his name. I kicked our ass, one of those games. But that year, we played Joey Roberts and Gary Kleppen and Jerry Scott had bought the team back for an anniversary deal. And we played them on Saturday night, which is a great crowd night, as you probably remember. And we had a great game with them and won that game. So that was really.
So what's your take on the modern game and the modern, development around high-performance curling and what's been going on in, with the Olympics?
I think a lot of it's great, Kevin. But when it comes down to it, you got to have the desire to win. I mean, all the other stuff, as long as it's a tool to win, that's great. But when it becomes a crutch, not impressed. I think the ice makers, Hans Westridge is a good friend. I go back to Shorty Jenkins. I was one of the few curlers at Worlds that was allowed to hang out with the ice makers because they knew I knew about ice making, and they refined that to an amazing, just a wonderful level. Without any corn out there, the ice is so clean. And then using multiple granite, hardened socket granite for running edge and for striking edge, and the things you guys can do with the rock now it's just beautiful. But I think the game has lost a little bit. There are times when you watch these guys, it looks like they're throwing darts, 42-pound darts. I mean, the variables have been kind of cleaned up from the game. I hate watching single sweeping. I had a very good curler texting back and forth with me that, the guy next to the rock does 90% of the work anyway, effectiveness. And I said, yeah, always been that way. Do you have a problem with having 100% all the time? Sometimes an extra inch or 3/4 of an inch. We lost some ice to Bill Jenkins in 77 on the pick, on the pre-draw, and they got the biter measurement out, and we lost that point by the width of a dollar bill. And that happened. So why would you have one guy watching? I hate it. It just doesn't do much for me. And like I said, the equipment is so good. And going back to us trying to figure out literally the height judge and which brand lasted longer and was a better sliding to. Now you got how thick is your Teflon. It's just beautiful, but the variables have changed a lot. And these guys are much better shape. I remember sitting down for dinner with Johnny Morris years ago, and I was laughing. And he could have played D-back for an NFL team, in my mind.
Yeah.
These guys are, I relate more to Bud Somerville, Tommy Larkin, Ed Werner, Nick Barry Fry, that generation of curlers. Mm-hmm. And I do. These guys are in just great shape.
Yeah, they don't do as many squats. They do more of the 20-ounce curls, right?
Yep, they do. They, and maybe we left, and not even maybe. I know I left a few more than a few W's in the bar the night before a game, and that, it's not that I was hung over in the competition, but, maybe we just didn't eat quite good enough. Maybe we didn't do all we could have done compared to what these guys are doing today. So I find that very impressive. It's just too predictable. I mean, when you know you can play double and triple angle raises because the rock's not going to move from your hand to the target, that's different.
Mm-hmm. So do you have an opinion on the U.S. and what it's going to take to, like, you've seen the sport, I guess, over the last 40 plus years, and where it's sat in terms of the sports culture, and now it seems the Olympics is given an opportunity, I think, and we've seen it in the United States every 4 years, curling sort of pops up as a national interest, even if it's just for those 2 weeks. And it seems like there is some growth now happening. So what are you seeing either kind of locally, or what are you hearing elsewhere across the U.S. in terms of some positive change that the Olympics are having, and where do you see it going?
Oh, I think the publicity and the come on out and try it. When you see, Colorado Springs had 800 people in 4 days for come out and try it. Mm-hmm. And that's not just Colorado Springs. It happens in every community across the country. There's people that see it on TV, they want to go try it. Sadly, we really don't have the infrastructure to support all those people, number one. I've seen Minneapolis have come up with some new clubs, and there are new clubs popping up in different areas across the country. Rick Patsky, the executive director of the USCA, has done a great job in marketing. I guess I watch on the team side. There's stuff we did without coaches, we had mentors, but I mean, I guess I see more reliance on the system than I do on the curler himself or herself. I think that's, Craig Brown just got back, and Willie Lyburn from Canada, they were over in China curling, promoting the game. I think that's great. These are a cost of their own year. That'll be something to see. I mean, 2 years ago, the guys were over in Russia curling in Red Square. Amazing. Gucci said that they should beat them up. That part of the game is different, but really, I just said that the shot making is awesome. I come back to the variables. And part of the variable is people really do rely on the system a lot. And I don't see that same level of relying on themselves that I did 20, 30, 40 years ago.
So anything else we hadn't covered? Any other thoughts you want to share?
I'm hoping maybe for my 60th birthday to go back to Hibbing in 2 years. That's kind of my one curling thing I want to do on my bucket list. And beyond that, I do enjoy all the work people like you do, Kevin, and putting together a history of the game, tying it into now. I think that's great. I really do. I'm happy for Facebook and for Twitter and whatever, keeping track of my friends around the world. Can't imagine if we had it back then. But then again, there would have been videos of what we were doing after games in different places around the world, too. So that's not all bad.
The promotional video from the 1976 Worlds, did you get a chance to take a peek at that?
Yeah. Bob Cowan has done a very nice job putting that stuff together, hasn't he?
Yeah, no, that's a great site.
And that's part of my forte. I literally grew up with these people, and, the Bob Pickens, Jim Bender, Blackjack Morris, just the people who were promoting the game back in the 60s and 70s. And like I said, I had a great 30-some year run from player to ice maker to promoter, and I guess I am very happy about it. And I appreciate getting dusted off every now and then. Keeps my mind working, and I do follow the game a bit, but it's time for other people to take over, and they're doing a great job with it. And I hope the best for the U.S. They just got to get hot at the right time. It's not that the guys and girls don't have the skills. It's really a matter of putting together. I mean, what's it been? 8 years since Canada's won a World Women's?
Yeah, and you look at what Switzerland's done with the women's in the last few years, and in a short period of time, they've had some incredible success.
And people.
Yeah,
and different hurdles.
Yeah, not even the same team, which is unbelievable. Yeah, very good success. So I think I'm always hopeful. I do think that growth in the U.S. can help the sport overall. I mean, there's no doubt that at any point in time, if when there's larger opportunity for exposure, it helps the game for everybody in North America and around the world. And I think the Worlds in Las Vegas is going to be interesting in a couple of years. Just following and it's going to come just on the heels of the Olympics. So yeah, I mean, I think it's always anything that's good that can grow the game. But I think let's hope that it grows everywhere. We want it not just to grow at the top end for the top handful of teams. We want it to grow for the number of clubs and opportunities that people have just to get out and get exposed to it.
And I got one last thing that just popped into my head was I actually went and coached Merv Body-Shark one weekend.
Okay, yeah.
And the other two guys in the team were Bobby Ursel and Shane Park.
Oh, yeah.
And we curled in St. Paul, so you can put that one together.
And how did that event go?
We lost the semi somehow. Not really sure how we lost. Even with, I think if we could have talked Merv and taken a couple of games off at the end, would have been okay.
What were your thoughts on Merv? What was that experience like getting to play with him?
Totally a visionary. Mm-hmm. Every sport has them, and they're crackpots while they're coming up with their vision. But you give it 10, 15, 20 years, and you see that as... And he was a goofball, I get that. But,
yeah.
His vision, in a lot of ways, other people have taken parts of it and built on it.
Yeah.
So from the promotion side point, I remember the Anaheim earthquake and that New York whatever and Chicago something. I mean, Terry Burley, we were just laughing. But it was pretty cool when it came down. Some guys put some pretty nice money in their pockets, which kept them curling more. So I'd love to see it, but at some point, the guys that are basically living on the game, I miss the amateur part of it, personally. But the tours are great. The next generation of ice makers to follow Mark Shirk and Merkinger, I can't wait to see what they come up with. I mean, Shorty started a great thing, and it's kept going, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you mentioned Hans. So, I grew up in Gimli when I was little. Hans was the ice maker. That's where Hans learned to make ice, was at the Gimli Curling Club. Yeah. I never curled in Gimli, but yeah.
I went up to a steel, and we were two guys short for a cash bill in Gimli, and Hans was making ice, and so we dragged him out to curl with us. Otherwise, we had to forfeit.
Well, I appreciate the time. It's been a great chat, Don. I mean, if there's something else you think of and you want to share, we can always throw you back on the podcast. And
I really appreciate it. I'm smiling here in North Dakota, right in the middle of one blizzard to the next.
How many feet of snow do you got there?
I think we only got a foot and change, 10, 12 inches maybe.
Yeah.
But the wind is hopefully the wind doesn't pick it up too bad. This really helped me procrastinate going out and firing up the snowblower, so I do thank you.
Well, you better get to it.
Yeah, God bless you, and enjoy everything, Kevin. One day at a time, huh?
All right, for sure. Thanks, Don. Appreciate the time. Good talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's an honor. God bless. Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.